please. If everybody would join with us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We've got a good crowd out here for our new schedule of having afternoon meetings on occasion, so that's good. Maybe kids suggested we do those occasionally. It makes sense. Some people can come more then, other people can't come then, but they can come to the evening session, so we'll try to do it reasonable for everybody. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 4th, 2015 regular meeting, please?
I move.
Ms. Smith? Second by Mr. Wilkerson. And all yes vote?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lynn, will anybody sign in the pink sheet back there?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay, since no one signed in to speak, we'll go to our first presentation, and I know he's back there somewhere. Mr. Snyder, Derek, is Derek with you, Dana?
It's right here.
Oh, there he is.
He is behind.
I don't know how he can ever have
Yeah, I'm blocking here.
I don't know how that ever happened. Okay, but Mr. Snyder and Mr. Christian are going to address the board. We're going to talk about the LCHS athletic field. In particular, I guess we're talking about the football track portion of it. Do y'all want to come up here, Dana, or have?
Well, I think, you all field turf, you've already met their representative, and he's been through everything, so there's no need to really revisit that. I think, speaking with Dana, the thing was to pick which option we felt was best suited, and we all agreed over there that the one that's just a little bit slightly tilted would be less construction needed and would be the best fit for what we've done over there already. We've also, I know the total cost of the whole project was $3.2 million or something, and we know that's a lot of money, and we've discussed it and we've talked about it. But that's a great offer, a great opportunity for this school, because I don't know if it'll be any lower than that ever again. That's from top to bottom, that's a great deal. And of course, I know money's tight, and there's no question in a rural school system that money's hard to find. But one of the options that we've come up with is to maybe, and Dana could come up and maybe explain a little bit more. Did you get all this run off?
Just go ahead, then he can interject here.
And Dana can chime in.
I'll pass them out while you're talking.
But basically, is we know that's hard to come up with, and we've talked about phases, which would probably be best for us. But the phase this will be to us a phase that's we feel is more doable. We know there's some money, there's a little bit of money there already. But this phase right here would include the field with all the turf. I mean, all the prep work, and we think we could probably get that down a little bit too. When you look at the cost of the stone per ton, that type of thing, I think we could work locally here with stone over here to maybe lower that cost. I think there's some overages in there that we could probably eliminate. We could probably get that down to a little bit lower. And this includes 8-year warranty, 8-year service plan that they offer, and some equipment that goes along with maintaining the field, with the tire that's cut up in, you have to groom it and that type of thing. And they come in anything from top to bottom, whatever would go wrong with the turf or the drainage or any of that stuff. For 8 years, they'll come in and they'll fix it for free. And I know that, like, some of the landscaping, that type of thing, we can handle that in-house, obviously. I think that's something we could come up with. But to try to piecemeal it together with, there's no question we can find people to come in and bring the dozers and and then they may take something off to provide the equipment Dana could probably address that maybe more than I could, but for them to install it, to put the drainage in, I think we should let them do that, because that may void the warranty. But this is I think this is a more digestible figure for us. And again, I know money's tight, but when you look at the overall impact, in my mind, and a lot of people's mind, I know we're looking at the physical plants that need to be addressed. But in my mind, for the success of Lincoln County High School and Lincoln County Schools, because ultimately it affects not every child, but 95% of the kids go through those hallways. And you look at the long term of it, it has just as much impact as a brand new school does, in my thought process, and a lot of other people's as well. Just the pride and the different pros that it brings to the school, not just to the school, but to the county itself. It's just something that's sort of neat. I mean, it's when, and again, when you go to these facilities, when you see the kids' faces, and I've seen them, and when you see, and some of these parents here, their kids are involved right now, it's tough. It's tough for our kids to get off the bus and walk into these beautiful facilities that all these other people have, and we don't have one. And I'm just speaking, and we're talking too, the benefits, the impact that it has, not just for athletics. I believe it will impact the total culture of the school, the total culture of this county, with the positive impact that it will have on our school and county. And you know, we're talking track, we're talking boys and girls soccer, we're talking band, we're talking graduation, we're talking, there are just the plethora of things that this facility could be used for to showcase our multi-million-dollar brand new school over there. In my mind, 10 years old is not very old for a school when you're dealing with the schools that we're dealing with, or any school. I mean, 10 years old is still pretty young. But Dana, if you have any questions about that pricing sheet, again, that's more doable. I think once people see that right there, I think we're more apt to get people to come forward and say, well, we can put the bleachers in, or we can complete the bathrooms and the locker rooms and those types of things. Which is that none of this alone is just the soccer or just the football field, the infield, and the track. But that's where we are again. You know, we're open to any plan to come up with money. Again, it's just something that's going to, you know, we see the dollar signs right up front, but you know, you have to look past that and look at the impact that we're talking about for the future of the kids of this county, 30 years down the road, 25 years down the road, to bring us up par, because there's single A's and double A's that are passing us up facility wise, and they all have beautiful, you know, just locally, every county around us, their fields are all field turf. And that's basically kind of why the prices are going down, because everybody's going to it. The maintenance of it's just so economical for school systems to maintain. But that's where we are, and that's if you have any questions, again, I can answer some of them, Dana can answer.
Okay. I think we understand what you're saying, Mr. Christian. And I'll just speak for kind of what we've talked about somewhat and give you my opinion. You know, we're still talking about $1.5 million. That's $1.5 million that we don't have. Now, you've made reference to other schools in the county where we have tremendous needs. To compare those to an athletic field, I guess, you know, one could make an argument. And you know, certainly what you have to understand, everybody understand, we would love to have that type of facility out there. I think, you know, like you say, it's been 10 years, and we had hoped that we would have, that donors would come forth in some type of plan, but that hasn't happened. So we're at the point now, you know, once again, I'm speaking for myself, these other people can speak for themselves, but, you know, my priority, myself, are for these 2 new schools. We're projecting a school over on the eastern part of the county that will serve over 900 kids. Right now, we have Midway Elementary School, which is very, very poor facility. That's where I started the school, and it was old then. We have Duval, which Dana will tell you, we're fighting floods every time it rains. So we have a tremendous need over there for over 900 students. On the other side, we have a tremendous need at Guyan Valley. It's built in 1926. You know, it's 90 years old almost. I remember in 1980 when we renovated Guyan Valley that after we had already gotten bids on the renovations, the contractors came in and they were amazed at what they found once they started taking it apart, as that there was so much structural issues that they couldn't even see. Well, that was 35 years ago. So, you know, those, in my mind, have to be our top priorities. But aside from that, this is something we'd like to see done. Now, Mr. Ashley's with us here from the SBA. We're going to talk about the possibility of us submitting a project this year, and that's the reason he's here today. But before the meeting started, I wanted to clarify with him, because for us to seek a proposal with the SBA oftentimes is dependent upon what they call, I have to write down, QZAB loans. Bertie can correct me. But it's when I was clarifying with Mr. Ashley exactly how that works. And this is federal money that is funneled into the state, and it all goes through the school building authority. So when you go to seek QZAP loans, it's not like Lincoln County can go to DC and say, you know, we'd like to get a QZAP loan for $1 million to build a complex, or, you know, part of a complex we want to do. You don't do it that way. It goes to the SBA. And let me tell you, the SBA, I don't know, you know, how many projects they have submitted to them every year for school buildings, but you know, if you've been around very long, you get the message quite quickly that their priorities are building schools and not athletic facilities. That's why one of the reasons probably we don't have one now. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify with him, and he told me that yes, all monies do go through the SBA. So I'm not going to put him on the spot or anything, but should we seek a loan such as that from the SBA, knowing all the needs that are needed throughout the state, all the facility needs there are, not even counting what our needs are? I think the odds of us getting a QZAP loan are slim and none for us to get that. Now, aside from that, if we thought that that was our priority, is to try to provide an athletic complex such as Mr. Christian's mentioned, and once again, something we'd all like to see. If it superseded those of these facilities that we've talked about, maybe submit a project for, how would we ever fund it? We wouldn't get it from the state. And I'm sure Mr. County's going to talk a bit about money here after a while. But, you know, this is not something that we, you know, have available to us, these type of funds, even if it was a priority over the facilities. So, once again, just to emphasize, what we've tried to do is being realistic about the whole thing. You know, back here a few years ago, the county commission challenged the board, and they put up $100,000 towards the football field. And we were all optimistic at that time that, you know, maybe this would get the ball rolling, so the board did the same thing. We put up $100,000. I don't know how many years ago that's been now, but it's been several. And guess what? We haven't gotten anything more, you know. And so we've just, you know, we've gotten to the point now where nothing's happening over there. Here a year or two ago, I know we had a lot of volunteers, like you alluded to there, Derek, that went out and, you know, did different things and got the field cut back somewhat, began that process. And then here in this past few months, we had a surveyor come in. You know, where would we be? You know, we need to kind of know what the site would look like, and that's one of the things that you mentioned there. We looked at the different, after the survey was done, they showed us different ways the field configuration could be done, and I think Mr. Christian had stated that they kind of preferred the slanted view, and that's, I think, many of us feel the same way. But that would have to be the first step, deciding how you want to do it. So we've talked about this over and over again, but we're just spinning our wheels. We've not done anything. So here at our last meeting or so, after it came out in the newspaper, when Field Turf came and, you know, the survey, that's what we had paid for, the survey. But at the same time, I don't blame the gentleman from Field Turf of, you know, saying, here's what we can do for you. And we certainly appreciated that, and that's when he gave us the $3.2 million price tag. Of course, it came out in the Lincoln Journal, which it should, not to imply that that's what we were doing, but, you know, people see that, and then, you know, some people think, well, they're getting ready. We've even had people in the community mention to us that we're not going to be using the Lions Club field anymore because we're moving to the high school because we're building this $3.2 million facility. Well, you know, that was all because of presentation. So we reached the point to where we said, you know, we need to, and I wanted to clarify that when we met before, so that I haven't seen this week's paper yet, but I think Mr. O'Donoghue was going to clarify that, you know, that was just a presentation and that wasn't something that the board was pursuing at that time. But anyway, what we felt like we needed to do was take what funds we had and begin the process. And we think, I don't know if we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of that $200,000, maybe a little less now. I don't know what we've got with interest, but we've spent a little bit of that money. But that's about what the monies we had. But what we had talked about, and we've just kind of tried to get a consensus among the board here, of getting somebody in here, professionals, with the type of equipment that's necessary, because the dozer operator spent days and days and days out there. But you know, if you get the right piece of equipment, they can have that down to the right contour in just a matter of days. So that's what we have kind of kicked around, the idea of trying to get done, hopefully this fall, to get the field down and take the first step to get it down to the contour of the way the facility one of these days would happen as a first step. Then after having done that, make seeded and sow it in grass so that one, it's there, you start, it makes the campus look more attractive, and you've taken the first step. Then we also have thought about the idea in the proposal that was submitted to us. This is a complex. It shows not only the football field, but also a track going around it. So we've also thought that it probably wouldn't be feasible to get all that done this fall, but maybe by next spring, we would be able to come in, knowing where the football field would be and all, and do the track portion of it around the field. That we would have adequate funding to do those two things, get it down to site and put in a track there that could begin to be used. I'm not saying next spring because you'd probably be in construction phase, but at least in the year afterwards, we could have a track facility out there that could be used. Then, hopefully, I'm kind of being an optimist too there, that maybe when people were seeing something was going on out there, that we had it down and looked nice and began to look more attractive for the campus as a whole. It could be used for practice activities that didn't require pads maybe or something, I don't know. And the track could be there. Then you've taken the first step, and then it's possible that funding would become available through some sources, you know, I don't know where, that then begin to take the next steps. So maybe putting the field turf down, maybe begin to put up seeding and those type things, but in stages doing the rest of it. But once again, I think everybody up here would like to see, we all would, a facility that matches those of these other places. You know, we're not going to deny that. We just don't know how we do it with the funding that we have available. Many of these places are in coal mining counties that have been that way for a long time, had a lot of revenue, and were able to do it. They were sponsored by coal companies like up at Scott and places like that. You know, we've never had any opportunity like that. We'd welcome it if it were to happen. But short of, after going 10 years now, knowing the state's not going to fund that for us, that we need to do something we can do and begin to take the first steps so that hopefully the others could come afterwards and once again at least begin to maybe utilize a track here in another year or two. So anybody would like, any member of the board have anything to say, or anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Go ahead, Vicky.
most of y'all know who I am, and I'm new to the county.
Just introduce yourself. So
I'm
the
T.G.
rest-
Hoffman, I own the Save-A-Lot. And I grew up watching Derek play ball, and I know how inspired he is, and I really appreciate his time coming. He's new to the county also. And I appreciate you all considering this, and I'd like for us to be able to take something from this. Maybe you all assigning a person that would work with us on some sort of committee to explore options instead of us just coming here to board meetings and talking about it. So if you all would assign someone that can work with us, and we'll have an executive committee that we can go back and explore more, because there's more that we've talked about, more that we need to get into besides just here and take up your time to meeting. And you all, I'm sure, know how passionate I am about athletics, because I sponsor athletic scholarship every year that the requirements are for you just to be on a team. Growing up, coaches meant a lot to me. I never had a dad, and coaches were my role model, and I know what athletics plays in kids' lives. This is a county school, okay? It's for the whole county. I really feel that more than just you all have responsibility in this. I feel county commission, I feel anyone in the county has a responsibility to your community. It goes beyond the schools. I hear so much, that's Hamlin School, from Guyanville, and I went to St. Albans, so I hear all that, and this would take care of it. This would bring your whole community together. It's not just about the kids that go there. It's not just about the football players and the track. This would bring your whole community together. I mean, Friday Night Lights. I mean, this is it. We really need to think beyond just the kids that play football and the kids that run track. All right, so I'd ask that you'd assign somebody to work with us and explore other options, and we can try to find the money and see what we can do. All right?
Thank you, T.G. Agree with everything you said. I don't think anybody will argue. Once again, we all would love to be able to go drive down Route 3 there on a Friday night and put those lights on there at the football field. We'd all want that. Mr. Mickey, I'd like you to give that some thought as to having a representative that would represent the board on such a committee as that, which I think would go hand in hand with what we're talking about. We can still take these initial steps that we'd like to see done, and then maybe a committee could come up and look at alternatives as far as sources of funding that might be available. So I think both of these things can work in unison here, that what T.G. mentioned and what we're planning on doing. Derek?
If we did form this committee, Mr. President, would this, say the funds that we raise from that, is that something that would have to be kept here with Birdie, or is that something that we would get a 501c at one of the local banks, or is that, how would that work?
Well, I'm gonna let Birdie speak, but she's the treasurer.
I would prefer that be deposited here, because I already got those accounts set up for that point in time, so we can just put it right in there. And it's totally kept separate all the time, period. It's audited every year, so, and there's just no need going out and doing the 501c. It's just a lot of extra work for somebody where everything's here as part of the school system, so this, and it's a tax write-off to anybody that wants to contribute.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So we're all automatically a tax write-off
Yes,
when you
right.
contribute to the school system.
And may I say, anytime you apply for a grant and you're already registered as a 501c, you have more opportunities than you would if you didn't. So it's better as a school system to look at grants and other funding if you're already set with the school system.
Yeah, I think oftentimes individuals might feel more comfortable too if they think that it's, going into a fund that's overseen by the board for whatever reason. But, so does that answer your question?
And the other was, okay, say we do progress, say we get this money, we get we got the 1.5. Would we have to go through the SBA to build this project?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay,
The only reason I mentioned
what I
them
said
was-
at the beginning, okay.
No, all the reason I mentioned the SBA was because, like, these facilities that we would like to see happen, and, that we may submit a project for one or the other here this year, or maybe we won't, we've got to talk about that. But they would be heavily dependent upon us borrowing money, over Duval, Midway area, you know, we've got to buy $750,000 worth of land or something like that, along with the engineering and architectural fees, all these things, you know, so we're looking at probably a couple of $1 million at the minimum, I would say, for us to even attempt to do that. So, usually what that means, just like at the high school, you know, the board borrowed $1 million at the high school to furnish the place after it was built. Up at Harts, the board had a $1 million loan up there to build that facility. So both of those were these QZAP loans. So that's the only reason I mentioned that, is whatever we do, we're highly dependent upon a loan such as that goes through the SBA. But no, if money's raised independently of them, then we can do what we wanted as far as the county's concerned. They'd welcome not having to hear about it anymore.
And we're still paying off both of those loans you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Those aren't paid off, we haven't satisfied those yet. And I don't know, you all probably understand this from looking into it beforehand, but what we talked about doing in terms of getting a start on this is taking the engineering or the architectural engineering plans that we've already bought. We bought those. We're gonna pay for those because we're not going to be able to jump on this project right now, at least as far as we see it. We talked about, though, having the professionals that Mr. Priestley mentioned do what they need to do with those, to take those fields when they excavate, to set those fields up for the next phase, so that if the money does come in, we're not having to go back and undo what we've already done. Everything would be cut down, contoured according to those plans. So, I mean, all of you that drive over there, I have kids over there. When you turn around the back of the high school, it's a huge eyesore. You almost wish you had a 20-foot privacy fence there to block that area off. It's that much of an eyesore compared to the rest of the campus. Doing something with it right now that doesn't impede and actually helps us, assuming money comes in at some point in time, helps us start down that path is better than what's happened for the last 10 years. At least that's the view that most of us have expressed individually, and I think the view that we would express as a board when it comes time to spend that money. But we're not looking at what we're talking about doing now as the end of this. We're not looking at giving up. Just practically, we're looking at $1 million to $2 million to build 2 schools that are desperately needed, assuming we can get SBA funding. And that will pretty much tap out our borrowing power to the extent we even have that much borrowing power now. Times are desperate financially, and I mean, I certainly would love to see a great athletic facility over there. Would love to have 3 kids in the school system here myself. Would love to see them get the benefit of that, but there's only so many dollars to go around. And if we can raise more money, if this group you talked about can raise the money, you wouldn't get any gripe from anybody sitting up here about pouring that money into it and building a phenomenal stadium. I agree. All of us agree that it would be a great benefit for the county to have a stadium we could be proud of. But sometimes you got to start off with baby steps, and that gets the ball rolling. So we're not looking at doing anything with the money that exists now that would impede us from taking bigger steps down the road if financing existed. We're just looking at doing something to get it started.
May I make a couple more comments?
Yes, sir.
You know, the board put in $100,000, county commission put in $100,000, and since we've had, that account, it's earned interest and everything. So as of today, we have spent $19,292 on that field, mostly dozer work, I believe. Would that be, yeah, okay, and we still have a current balance of $200,674 to do what Mr. Baker's talking about. And then we talk about borrowing power. We will not get a QZAB to build an athletic field. Would you agree?
I would agree.
The state of West Virginia this year got like $2.6 million for QZAB, has to be, that's for the whole state. It's just not gonna happen for an athletic field. So that leaves us 2 options. Private contributions, it's a lot of money to get something like that. The other option is, and then Mr. Minkiff may shoot me, is we have to do a bond. I mean, that's probably the only way we're ever gonna get facilities in this county. They're all gonna kill me. But when you look, if it's something you want to do, you've got to get this community together and pass a bond. I'm sure Harts Creek would love to get facilities up there, and if we're looking at a new school on that end of the county, they're going to need facilities. So that's our option.
Can we, the next levy comes up, can we just make that part of the levy cost?
There's not enough in there, Dana. because we're already doing $200,000 for capital improvements, and there's just
I was thinking if
nothing.
you got a loan, though, could you not put a loan payment in there?
Well, the only type of loan you can get is a QZAP, which that's only gonna be through SBA, and there's no other loans. The boards are not allowed to do loans. I mean, we can't just go out and do a loan. The only other option we have is a lease purchase. We can do that, but it's just gonna be small amounts, nothing to cover what it would take to build that facility. So that kind of leaves us with private contributions, or some future point, we gotta go back out and do a bond, you know, to maybe upgrade some of these facilities that we need, and then look at our athletic fields. And, you know, you depend on the mood of the citizens of the county.
That was one of the biggest things I had heard about the last bond, was
Mhm.
spending too much money on that.
Yeah.
A lot of people voted against it just because of that.
Well, when we met with the gentleman, Tom, the guy that spoke to the committee, Mr. McKinney.
Oh, Mr. Young. Yes,
Tom
Tom
Young,
Young.
yeah. I mean, he let us on that there was too much on there total. There was 5 different, things to vote on, and that, he said that's way too many, you have to pare that down. And we should do kind of what we're doing now, you know, pick 1 or 2 that we want to target and put that on the bond. The 5 was way too many. That's what I took out of that meeting.
Well, bonds are tough to sell.
And we saw where that bond went.
Well,
I mean, it was.
We've been around here a long time and seen how bonds have, how they failed. And we did pass one in 1978 or 79, whatever year that was. But, you know, in order to pass it, we had 23 schools, I think, then we read. And, you know, what we learned, because it did fail the first time, was we had to give something to every one of those 23 schools. They all had to have something, piece of the pie, or they weren't going to vote for it. So we spread that out among 23 schools, and luckily eked out a bond win. But, you know, this last one that went down in flames with 26 or 7%, whatever it was, you know.
75. 75-25.
Yeah, okay.
You were there that night.
Sure was, so were you. Yeah, it's a good night.
Yeah, but anyway, you know, we're looking, I think we all agree, like what Rowdy said, let's take a step, if working together cooperatively, we can find other sources of funding. Hey, you'll see we're willing to do that. If people are there, we're willing to do what we can do to complement that.
Well, I think we have to start with the committee. I mean, I know there's committees for everything, but has there ever been one formed to address the facility? To see what
No.
money is available out there? Has anyone ever done that
No.
in the last 10 years, a facilities committee?
Up front, when we first consolidated, we had a group of parents, community members who served in that capacity. And I shared with you earlier today, when I met with you all this morning, you know, about that effort that we undertook. We were unsuccessful in finding any type of financial support. You know, I still contend that there may be some grant monies out there available. And Rhonda Kersey, our 21st Century Coordinator, I don't know if the board knows Rhonda or not, she spoke earlier. She's pursuing and looking at some possible grant opportunities that may be out there, that may be community-related, and this whole idea or issue about safety, concern about some of our student athletes walking over to the Lions Club field, you know, from school each day, that there may be something in that area that we might be able to secure.
Well, you know, you brought it up, Mr. McKipp, and I think everyone, you know, Calvin, he's just been a godsend to this county. I'm sure a lot of you have worked with Calvin a lot longer than I have, but Calvin's just not going to be able to do it like he has been. And he's made that point well known to myself and Mr. Snyder and even our staff and even our concession stand workers that and he made the comment one day, he's just going to mow grass from now on. And I mean, that's something that we have to take that into consideration as part of the, even if we do maintain that, I mean, we'll have to maintain that over there, obviously.
Well, we're gonna have the
That's
Lions
something
Club
to
field
think
for
about.
middle school activities and all the other things go on, so, you know, even if we were fortunate enough to build a complex at the high school, we don't see abandoning the Lions Club field. We've got, you know, Hamlin Middle School plays there, and then all the other local things, so that's gonna have to, now, we agree with you about Calvin, for sure. But somehow or other, we're gonna have to keep that place going. And that's something we'll all probably have to address. But back to the idea of a committee, maybe Mr. Midkiff and Mr. Snyder could get their heads together and think about how that would be, how you all want to set it up, whether it would be, I don't know, whether it be in a countywide perspective, or should it be through the high school? You can talk to him about that, you all can work for it, but I think we would all welcome that, and members of the board, a committee being formed, and the board being represented, whoever you all out there think needs to be on. We certainly want to get all parts of the county, everyone from all segments of the county involved in it to do that. And so, we're on board. Everything you're all saying, we agree with. We want to do it too. We just don't know how to afford to do it. But we're willing to look at alternatives and grants and everything else. I think that's a great idea. Mr. Curry's mentioned that for a long time, so I think Jeff's hit that's one thing that you tough economic times everywhere, but sometimes there's money there that you just didn't know you could get if you try to do it. So we're on with that too. So, anything else? Anybody else want to say anything? Wait a minute. There's another young lady in the back.
Okay.
So,
Oh, how was it?
I know. Christie,
She'll say what I was going to. Okay, if we form.
tell us who you are first.
Oh, sorry, I'm Christy Strikes.
Okay, thank you.
I am a parent. My son is a senior. So this field he will not benefit from. But one day I will have grandkids that will benefit from it. Those of you who's been over there, our kids are practicing in those back fields now, and someone's going to get hurt. And so I think you all just need to help us, guide us which way we need to go with getting this committee formed. And we would like for each of you board members to be a part of our committee too. When we go to state delegates and stuff, we need you guys to also, talk to them. You guys are elected officials. Help us ask them for money. We need your all's help too. Us parents can only do so much. We've sold enough t-shirts and hot dogs just to be able to feed our kids now, work on what we're doing now. We don't care to form this committee. We don't care to get people together, but we need you all too. And not just you all of our elected officials. They're going to have to stand up and help us. All elected officials is going to have to help us in this community to build this stadium. We have to have this complex. We're not getting kids out to play ball, track, all that. I mean, like track, there's nowhere for them to practice. They're just running, and we just do not have the equipment for them. Soccer, I dealt with soccer. We've raised so much money to try to get netting, get the nets for them and all that. We just need your all's help. Whenever we form this committee, whenever you put the committee together, we would like for the board members to be on that committee too, because your all's voice will help our community and stuff. If you all don't mind, we would like for you all to be on our committee.
Once again, the composition of the committee, we'll see how these gentlemen come up with it, but I envision at least the board having a representative on the committee. And then all of us, we all lobby different things, and we all do that in our own special way. But at the very least, I would see the board having a representative on the committee that would be an active participant. And everybody else, I'm sure, would be welcome to attend if they wanted to. But Mr. Snyder and Mr. Mickey will talk about the composition and how they see it. And I'm sure we'll all know what we can do.
Legally, Brenda, can we write a letter after we get the committee formed and the dirt starts moving over there? Can we write a letter to send to all the business owners around here? Is it legal for the board to do that as a board?
To seek funding that would come in as a donation into an account that Bertie has?
Right.
Probably not.
The board could.
The committee could. The committee could.
Could our name be on it anywhere?
Why don't we have Ms. Tyree, get with her, she's our attorney, and have her to direct us in that regard, how active or.
When you talk to her, ask her if we legally can go to our officials in Charleston, if we can go to their offices. Ask her if that's legal also.
I think we ought to be able to do that, just as individuals, but.
And ask for money for that.
Lobby them. They get lobbied, they'll get lobbied a little bit more. All right, anybody else have anything on this topic? Anything else? Okay. All right, we appreciate everybody. We're all have the same goal, and we keep plugging along and doing it step by step. We'll get there, and hopefully the sooner the better. But thank you for coming out. Okay, now we'll go to our next presentation. That's Mr. Midkiff and Mr. Ashley. We're going to talk about the SBA project submission. Mr. Ashley.
Hello.
Man with, I started saying money, but you don't have money, but.
Again, thank you for having me today. I'm Ben Ashley with the SBA. Board members, I'll give you a folder.
We appreciate you coming back, Mr. Ashley.
Yeah. I was sent an email from Mr. Midkiff last week that outlaid some questions that we wanted to talk about today in regards to a project submission and some of the committee meetings we've had over the county's had over the last few months to figure out what exactly they want to submit to the SBA as far as a needs project for this year. Needs funds will be given out in December. Statewide, we're going to have, in my estimate, about $150 million worth of need, probably from 20 to 25 counties, and we're only going to have about $50 million to hand out. So maybe a few million over that, maybe less. But I do know, we just talked about the legislature. Last year, the legislature took $8 million from us to balance our own budget, so it may be a little difficult for anybody to get money in these tough financial times statewide with the coal severance tax where it is and things like that. So finding money's tough right now, not just in Lincoln County, but really all over the state. So with that said, how do you want to go about this today? I can keep this an open session to talk to you or answer any of your questions.
If you would, the questions that we've posed, maybe if you could just go through, you have the same description we have. These are just, some questions that Mr. Ashley wanted to have an idea, but some things we had on our mind. So we submitted several questions we had, and if you maybe just go over those questions and your responses, and I think that'll answer a lot of questions, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, the first question is what type of things are local boards typically responsible for? And I assume this was up front. Counties are always responsible for site acquisition and site acquisition costs. The SBA has never bought land to build a school, but we do build on top of that land. So we'll work together with you to find a good site that won't cost a lot to develop. That's what we'd like to find, that has utilities on site hopefully, and it may be difficult, but something that's relatively flat too. Because any little bit of dirt we have to move costs money. That's less money we can put into it. We'd like to put as much in the classroom as we can. So,
I'll follow up to that one then, Ben. So if we have a site, the development of that site, does the SBA pay for the development of the site?
Yeah. We will pay. We have roughly a $24 per square foot allowance as part of the overall $234 or $254 per square foot elementary school cost allowance that goes toward site development costs. That's for grading. That's for bringing utilities from the property lines to the building. It's for building any types of roads or anything, the bus loops, or getting the building pad ready to build on. So that would be the less we have to do for that part is more money we can put into the walls and classrooms and buildings and things that go on top of that. So we want to pick the most feasible site we can to build upon with that $24 per square foot allowance.
Okay. Taking that into account, are you familiar with the site that we were proposing in our bond?
Just vaguely familiar with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, it's on, you probably passed it coming back and forth,
okay.
over on 214 coming towards Hamlin there, but Reva's Lane, is that what it's called? That was where it was proposed in our bond issue. And I know when you go by there, you've got to look quick to see because it's just a little road that goes off the side there. But so obviously it would require, I always envision, how are all those school buses going to get in there? But I mean, that requires obviously opening that up tremendously. Now, is that a part of this site acquisition or site work that the SBA would pay for?
Yeah. The only thing we don't pay for would be the original geotechnical report to ensure that the ground is buildable. We usually don't pay for the survey, although we do pay for some of the architectural and engineering costs later that could be reimbursed. And then, for surveys for sites that you maybe wouldn't select. So if you found a site and maybe the geotechnical report wasn't good and the survey didn't come out quite like you wanted, and you went to another site, we wouldn't pay for that original stuff to go to the new site. But,
I just want to clarify though, that if the board obviously is responsible for the acquisition of the property itself.
Right.
But then, and the surveying and the engineering and all those things, like that. But then the actual prep work could be a cost of the SBA based on the $24 a square foot, is that what?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, we can go to the next one.
And then, since we're talking about the site, with that in mind, when it comes to submission day, it's a good idea to have as many of these questions answered already. So if you've got a site selected with at least at minimum an option to purchase the site, or the site already at hand, that would be one less reason for them not to, or to not fund it. So if you don't have a site in hand and you've got a good project going, but there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, the SBA may say, well, this county over here is gone a little farther with it. They'll probably have a better project because of that. So we would suggest having a good site selected, and then if you can get some of the geotechnical reports done by then, or just something to make you feel comfortable that this is the place we're going to build. Having those questions answered could be very beneficial on funding.
I have a question. If we previously got permission for the land and talked to the owners and they agreed to sell, will we need to go back and do that again to make sure they are still willing to sell?
I would. I think that'd be prudent. You don't want to have to go back on something you promised somebody else. If you come to the SBA and say, we had an option to purchase this land and we think we can get it again, well, we'd say we'd want you to make sure that you had that option this time too.
They may have raised the price.
And yeah, that's right.
Then there was a geotechnical work and the survey was completed on that property, right? Out in front of the bond referendum.
That's very good news. So as long as that's probably up to where it needs to be, we can certainly look at that again. I think Mike Hall he was the one that talked to me about that. And then some preliminary work there.
So a lot of that preliminary work is on that particular site, should that be the one that was chosen, has been done. Just be a matter of trying to come up with an agreed upon price once again.
Right. It may be a good idea to get an engineer or an architect out there to get a good estimate on what it would take to develop that site. If there's a lot of cut and fill that needs to happen, or if there's a large amount of utility work that has to happen just to develop that site that may or may not fall within that $24 per square foot allowance, it may be a good idea to get somebody in there to say, yeah, this is a very buildable site, or yeah, this may cost a little more than it typically does elsewhere.
And that's something that I think what Mr. Mickey said, we may have done much of that.
Okay.
If that same site is chosen again, that was done on the last bond call.
Okay.
But it wouldn't hurt to make sure.
Sure. Let's see. Related question would be a rough idea of how much of these things we would have to include in the submission. Okay. The next question talks about what needs to be submitted to the SBA when it comes to requesting a project. Again, in that folder is the SBA 120, the needs executive summary, and this outlays what the school building authority is looking for when you submit a project. So, you can address concerns such as health and safety, educational innovations, travel time, existing conditions, enrollment projections, things like that. And I'll certainly be with you to help you work through any of this stuff that you can, when you have questions on. School closure hearings are required, probably are. And then cost savings and cost avoidance numbers. Sometimes the cost savings and cost avoidance numbers are difficult to project, but they tell a real good story on how severe the need is. So we're spending a lot of money maintaining and operating an old school and a new school, yet it costs this much money, but we'll save this much money a few years later. That can tell a real good picture of what needs to happen.
I have another question before you go on. You're talking about Midway and Duval here. Do we have anything, are we going to talk anything about Guyan Valley and West Hamlin?
Yeah, this.
Okay, so we're going to discuss that too.
Just hypothetical, we're just.
Okay.
I feel like everything I've talked about could work for both areas, not just here, but in any county too, so.
Okay.
Everything I'm giving you, I've given to other counties as well, so.
Okay.
We can talk specifics about the individual projects when you're ready.
Okay.
But, I'd like to keep things as open as possible, because I don't want to get locked down, because sometimes when people hear a number, they get fixed on it, and then that may or may not change later down the road, so.
Yeah, I mean, like Ms. Smith mentioned, we never arrived at a definite, this is our number one project, so we're going to submit yet. We've never reached that point. We just know we've got two projects.
Sure, sure. And then determining priority, that's something you guys have to do. We may offer suggestions of what we think could be best. I know that, sometimes the more expensive school is probably a greater need, but we think another project that doesn't request as much money may have a better chance of getting funded. So that's something we also have to look at as well. The next question is a clarification on who pays architectural fees. Those are split based on the grant contract. When Lincoln County Schools says we're committing X amount of dollars to this project and we're requesting this amount of dollars from the SBA to build this project, there's a percentage breakdown that happens there. And throughout the entire duration of that project, we would pay that percentage and you would pay that percentage on all bills.
What's the current estimate of an architectural fee right now?
I would guess it's anywhere between 5 and 8%, probably closer to 5 on a project this size. So that would be that would all fall within that $25 million number, within the Duval Midway project.
So if you had a 25 million, you're talking $750,000 probably.
It could be
total, I think.
That's probably about right.
Right. Now, are you saying then that we would split that cost?
We would split it based on the percentage breakdown of overall project allocation from the county and the SBA. That'll be outlaid in the grant contract.
If the county had 14% of total cost, we pay 14%
That's
of
correct.
architectural.
That's correct. Yeah, A&E fees, and every bill that's paid throughout the project is broken down like that. So.
Are the percentages the same on every aspect of the project?
Yeah, we set it up that way. So I think, back when the SBA started, I think sometime in some occasion we spent all our money up front, and the county said, well, we don't have any more money, so we split it every time that way from then on. So, and then sometimes money's left over at the end, we'll take ours back and you can have your percentage back.
You don't just leave the shares to build a stadium over here? Can you overlook about $3 million? Just
No,
one?
I'm not the finance guy, I'm just the architect guy. Let's see. Local boards still get to select the architectural firm. Yes, but that has to be approved by the SBA, and so far, I think we've only not approved one county selection as far as architects. So you guys will form a committee, and then I can be available to be there during the architect interviews to answer any technical questions that may be questionable there. So, certainly we'll take your recommendation and we'll probably agree with it. How many acres are required for a pre-K to 8? I looked just at the Duval Midway project because it's a bigger school. We would require 12 to 13 acres of buildable land. You can do it a little smaller, obviously a little bigger would work, but I'm talking buildable land here, so hopefully flat and not straight up and down.
I recall the acreage last time.
21 acres, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I've got in my head 26, but I probably need to look at that outlaw senior loan.
It was at least 20 acres, at least 20.
Is
It
that
was
what
at least
we-
20,
is
yes,
that what
it was
we
at least
were-
20 acres.
We had a commitment for from the landowners?
Yes.
Okay.
On all acres, yes.
20.
That project there was projected to be PK 5.
Okay.
And so this being 8, I just think of the additional acreage it might necessarily be for whenever they have the athletic facility needs.
Right.
There was extra land there that we thought we could get
For
for,
athletics.
yes.
There was.
And all the utility work was looked at. Probably the sewer issue is the biggest issue. Gas and electric's there, on that particular side.
Okay. Forgive me, I haven't been here long enough to understand all the particulars of the site you guys looked at last time, but it sounds like you guys.
We've gone through a lot of these hoops on that particular site.
Okay. Good. 20 is what we typically look for. That's kind of our safe number. Anything less, we go back to policy and say, if it's gonna be this number of students, we'd like for it to be this big, but, and that's why I said 12 to 13. That's where it thought it'd be almost the minimum, but you could do it for less probably, but if you're at 20, 25, 26, 28, that's perfect.
Now, if you were building a middle school, I guess, is there a size for that?
Yeah, that was a middle school.
Oh,
An
that-
elementary
either
school,
one.
probably about 10 or 12. Yeah.
Now, what if you were building a middle school on a PK5 campus?
I just took, well, that would be a little different. If it's a renovation, you may not need as much room. I don't know, I have to go back and do better
On the
answer.
site.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that. Probably get a floor plan or maybe see what area you want to build in. There wouldn't be as much total acreage, in question. It'd be just an area, a question of where. And then, here's the QZEB question. Can a county secure a QZEB loan of more than $1 million? Right now, our authority overcommitted on QZEB loans last year. We gave away about $4 million worth of QZEB loans. We only had 2 to give away, so and that was in the spring of 14. So we're spending this year's QZEB, or last year's QZEB this year, or this year's QZEB on last year's projects.
So there'll be QZEB money available in this submission coming up?
I think there will, but it's totally contingent upon whether the federal government says yes, I think by the end of the year. So, we're banking on the fact that there will be because, because they've historically done it and gotten the same amount the last few years. West Virginia's used it really well. So.
But would there be QZEB money that hasn't already been obligated by the SBA?
There
I know
will
you
be.
don't know, but-
Yeah, I don't know. If it's committed, if the federal government commits QZEB money to West Virginia this year, this fall, or this winter, there will be $2 to $3 million available. Right now, the QZEB money that we currently have has gone to projects that we've overcommitted on.
So there's a possibility if the federal government allocates new monies that it could be available.
Yes, sir.
Maybe.
That'd be correct. And that we treat that as a local share. So if you get $1 million QZEB loan, that would be considered $1 million of Lincoln County's money they're putting toward the project, because ultimately you're responsible for paying it back. And another caveat of the QZEB money, I guess the auditors or the people that set up the QZEB loans like to ensure that the money they spend with that, the items they purchase with that QZEB money could be, for lack of a better term, repossessed. They want something they can physically take back in case you default in loan. So we typically buy HVAC equipment or something, nothing like walls or concrete or anything like that. So they like to clearly delineate. And sometimes they've gotten creative. I think they've even bought school buses with that, and we've traded some monies around that way. But it's a little tricky on how to use that. But again, it's hard to get, and it's not a question we typically tackle everywhere. The last question that's on this list is furniture included in SBA funding? If it's done through a contractor, then yes. If it's direct purchase by the county, sometimes counties do that to save money, then we would have to look at that, probably yes, there too. We've done it all over the board. Some counties have contracts with furniture suppliers that can get it a whole lot cheaper than what we can if we go out the street and bid it. So that's just kind of a case-by-case scenario, but I just wanted to, yes.
Well, that would all be, if you had a project submission, I guess all that would be laid out in there as to
Right.
what the county was proposing.
Right. And that's a question that could be answered further down the line too. If there's, as we're building, if there's some, bigger things you'd like to include in the project, and you think there's money to be saved through furniture, maybe you already have some that's not that old that can go in this building, that would allow you to free up some money to do something else, and certainly it's okay to go on there too. That was the last question I had on the list.
Are there any other questions any members of the board have that Mr. Ashley has?
Yeah, I have. This 12 acres here of buildable land, that doesn't take into consideration any athletic facilities?
No, that does. That should.
You think
Yeah.
that?
That should cover it. That's why we typically like to go with our safe number of 20. But if you get a good architect that could fit everything on the site the way it should be, so that everything's all spread out. If you build efficiently, that 12 to 13 number could work.
Anything else we want to?
One other thing in the packet I did throw in, and I don't know if we want to talk specifics yet. Based on the SBA's formulas that we have as far as middle schools and elementary schools, pre-Ks are a little different because it's kind of a combined enrollment. I put the maximum building allowance calculator. This is kind of preliminary. It's taken enrollment figures from a couple of years ago, maybe even this past year, averaged them out, and from that, if you kind of look here at the highlighted areas, it says the maximum amount of money you could ask for from the SBA to build this particular school would be that $25.7 million number. So that would build you a really nice school with all the current amenities and things like that, and a reasonable site development cost included in there. That would all be included in that 25. That would be the maximum. That would be the ceiling as far as price tags go for what we would want to build. So that could be kind of the high point, 25.7. But could we build it for 24 million, 23 million? Probably. If you had a really good site and an efficient design, it could come in a whole lot cheaper than that. But that would be for just under 900 student pre-K through 8 school. I know we don't like to throw price tags out there early on, but this would be kind of the ceiling for that.
We need that idea anyway.
Okay. Good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out again.
No problem.
Call you back.
Yeah, I'll be as available as I can to you. I think our submission deadlines are October 1st, and we'll be out looking at all the projects that are submitted after that. So my schedule may get a little hairy, but I certainly want to be as available as I can to answer any questions you have throughout this process.
Have
In
you
October-
looked at West Hamlin at all and studied anything about that, about?
I have looked at it as far as crunching numbers in the office and what you may qualify for. I didn't bring that with me because I didn't know that would sort of be on the table again, but I can get that to you when you would, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to see that also.
And again, that would be the maximum renovation allowance. Anytime we do a renovation, we like to look at what's there and what you need, and then compare that to what we think it should cost. We like to do that a little more than what we'd like to, or what we would do for a new school, where we say this is what we get for a new school for that price. So, again, you have to look at a lot of existing conditions and existing uses of space. So if there's, if there's room we can renovate in the current school that may save you from building part of the new, that's obviously a lot cheaper. So we look at that number again.
Well, you would have to, I'm sure you probably haven't studied that enough, but if the plans are to bring Guyan Valley to West Hamlin, you would have to go up with the building.
You probably could. I've only looked at it from Google Earth, I think. I haven't driven by it yet, but
You could provide us, some similar data on that too.
Yeah, send it to you.
At Guyan Valley, we're looking at two things really. Do we build a facility like was proposed in our bond on the current site, really on the where the football field is, and then tear the building down and build the football field there? That was kind of the idea there. Or do we kind of abandon the facility at the current Guyan Valley site and move down to the elementary site and build the middle school on that site? That's kind of our options there.
Okay. Well, yeah, building a renovation is usually a whole lot cheaper than building new schools. So.
We think that's probably true, or we agree with that.
And
I think that's where Carol was coming from, just kind of assuming that would be our logic.
I would also imagine that if you build a new school, you wouldn't realize the same as far as economies of scale. You'd be building a big space for probably a low number of students.
Yeah, this is under 300 students.
Okay, so I think 350 or maybe 400 or something is probably the economy of scale threshold. So.
Right. But if we merge it with that PK5, we would
probably be a whole lot cheaper.
A little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you'll give us some information, we're going to give you a chance on that. We appreciate that.
Certainly will. Send it to me and I'll forward it.
Brenda has one from
And I just want to say how much we appreciate what you've done thus far, the assistance you provided, not only information provided to the board, but work with the CEFD committee. It's greatly appreciated. I just want you to know, we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I enjoy this, and this is my job, like I say, but I do get a lot of enjoyment out and get to travel the state, working with fine people like you. Thank you.
We appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks.
One other aspect of this, we asked Mr. Meekins, did Ms. Gandy, the treasurer, we talked about what our needs are. What funding might we have available to us, Bert?
And I gave them a copy of the handout.
So of course, we already have those two QZABs that we talked about, and one of those is going to be paid off in 2021, and that's for Lincoln County High, and the one for Clarks will be paid off in 2022. And in our excess levy, we do have a levy call that allocates $200,000 each year for permanent improvements. And our current balance, as of August the 4th, in our capital improvement account was $407,000. So July 1 of next year, we'll dump another $200,000 in there. So this time next year, we'd have $600,000 that could be used to purchase the land, which is the part that we're really going to have to come up with. And I mean, other than that, I mean, we could probably pick up another QZAP bond, because the payments on those are usually about 53. One of ours is 53, one's 55,000. So we would be able to, to pick up that. So that would get us at around 1.6 million that we could dedicate. Now, I don't know if that's even in the ballpark. I mean, do you even have any idea of what we would have to put in as a local share?
Well,
25 million?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we look at. It's not the same, big number that we, across the board that we'd expect like we used to.
Yeah.
We look at counties' ability to pay, we look at their wherewithal. We also look at what they've spent their money on in the past. If they're out building a bunch of football fields when there's a big need for a new school or something like that, it's not gonna look good when they're coming to us asking for money, saying, yeah, we got this need out there, but there's other things we've done. So we would look at your carryover, we look at your personnel overages and things like that, and we would say, based on all that information, this is where we think we should be on a project or a percentage basis for a project, and then that number would not be the same all across the board. But then at the same time, we would still say, yeah, Lincoln County, we're bringing $2 million or $1.5 million to this project, and that's a lot, but this county over here is bringing 50% of the project. So it may be difficult, and I don't know, you never know where that's going to be, you never know what other counties are bringing until they submit the projects to us. So I don't know what to tell you, but we do look at how you spend your money now.
It's poverty.
Yeah.
You're not
Tax
the
base.
only-
Everybody does that.
Yeah, you're not the only county that's like that too.
Okay, so
that's pretty much where we stand and what we could do.
about $1.5 million is assuming that we could get a loan.
Yeah, assuming we could get another QZAB. And I talked to Gary Stewart, because Gary's actually the state person with SBA that manages the QZAB bonds.
Yeah, he's our financial.
Yeah, and, he said, I mean, if we got a plan approved, there would be a good chance that we could get another QZAB. Of course, the maximum you can get each time you go would be $1 million. So that would be the most funding that we could come up with, would be $1 million QZAB and $600,000 of our permanent improvement funds. That would be a good solid number we could use as a commitment.
And I don't know if this is a multi-year thing, but the project will be over the duration of probably 3 years. So if you look at maybe not just 1 year, it's going to generate money over the next 3 years.
Well, like I said, every year we could pitch in another $200,000. So, right now we've got $400,000 we could put in. Next year it would be, another $200,000, which would put it at $600,000. Next year we'd have another $200,000 we could put in, so that would be $800,000 if they would look at it over those, a time frame like that. So, I mean, the board could just say, okay, each year we're gonna dedicate this to $200,000 for this particular project and make that commitment.
So over a 2-3 year period of time, which is kind of the way that you all divvy out money anyway, and maybe we could come up to maybe a $2 million figure.
Right. There's usually not a whole lot of money spent in the first year of the project, so that would give you, time to save and you look more at the back end of the calendar there.
Well, we stretched it to 2. So I don't know if we're stretching or not. Okay. All right, thank you, Bertie. Mr. Mickey, if anything else on this
I have a
topic?
question. A project then that would be approved by the SBA in December, construction the following summer, probably, or?
Yeah, anything you can do up front to help the architect, get started, or if you even wanted to go, if you certainly want to go through this project, and you say, let's get an architect on board and get them going, we're willing to go this far, design-wise, before a project's funded. That way, come March, they're ready to maybe put out an early site package to get the site development going. And then, maybe at the end of the fall or beginning of spring, we're ready to build a building package. It'll probably be a year before, I would say at least a year before we can take it out to contractor for bid. But we typically look at it as a 36-month time frame maximum. But anything you can do on the front end to sort of move that calendar forward could get you in the school early and could get the project going a little quicker.
Okay. Anybody, no one has any other comments about that? We'll move on. We're gonna